Hey everybody, my name is Snitch. Welcome back to another episode of CO Select. Today's game is a tier 4 match on the fog map 1 versus 1 Okahazama. What a mouthful. I have covered this map before, but played a lot of fog since then. Had another decent game on it. A game that ended up being pretty interesting, and I thought I'd showcase it. Some interesting tactics on this map that both players can employ and stuff like this. My opponent today is Nobody Good on... Oh, I can't remember the name of the country. It's I'm gonna have to look it up. I have to know. See, this is a testament to how committed I am to the original take. Acid Rain. Dude, I knew it was something to do with acid, but I couldn't remember the second word. It was escaping me, I swear. But yeah, Nobody Good, great player. Excellent standard player recently. Really been shooting up the ladder. They're really sitting very hard nowadays. They're playing Sammy. Sammy actually tier 4 on this map, I believe. But interesting. Generally, she's perceived to be quite a bit weaker in Fog of War, for reasons that you might see. Sammy's day-to-day is that her Footsoldiers are 30% stronger, and they also gain a 50% additional capture rate when they capture properties. So by default, she captures at 15. If if her infantry is 5 HP, it captures at 7, I think. Right, because it's 50% rounded down. So it should be 7. Basically, the way Sammy works is her infantry, if you try to interrupt them on a capture, you have to put them to at least 3 HP. If they're 4 HP or higher, they will... Actually, no, I think you have to put them to... That must be 3 HP, right? Yeah, at least 3 HP, because I would round up to 4. Yeah, so if you put them to 3 HP, they won't be able to capture properties in 2 turns. But otherwise, she can capture... any property in 2 turns, as long as the infantry preserves at least 3 health on the following turn, and it was full HP on the initial capture. Additionally, she gains +1 movement on all her transports, but all of her direct units are 10% weaker, have a 10% firepower decrease. This is generally mitigated by comm towers. So maps with comm towers, she doesn't have to worry about it as much, and also 10% isn't really super drastic. Can make it harder to break like tanks on cities and stuff like this, but she has stronger mechs, which she could use for this purpose. And yeah, her transport movement increase traditionally means you want to make use of mechs and transports and foot soldiers in general. Her CO power is double time, gives an additional 25% firepower bonus to all of her foot soldiers, so they go up to 50%, and on top of that, they gain an additional +1 movement for the turn. And her super, very infamous Victory March gives +2 movement to all of her foot soldiers, increases her firepower bonus to 70%, and for foot soldiers specifically, and foot soldiers can instantly capture buildings on that turn, regardless of their HP. So, I'm sure we've all faced the Sammy HQ capture with her super, very, very standard stuff. But, Victory March has other applications as well. It's not only for HQ cheesing. If you get a turn where you have infantry in range of, 5 enemy properties, let's say, which is very easy to do with 5 movement, you can get a huge economic swing on that turn. So, Sammy's playstyle in general is about very early infantry aggression. Try to bully out your opponent by forcing infantry trades, which they can't really keep up with due to the strength of her foot soldiers. Maybe using early mechs to pressure vehicles, so they'll generally have to combine them with APCs or T-copters to kind of do that effectively. But yeah, she's a lot about early aggression and trying to brute force property advantages, and this is kind of why she's generally perceived to be a little bit worse in Fog, because you can't really be sure where the enemy has vehicles. In Standard, she can see the whole map the whole time, right? She knows where the enemy's investing vehicles, she knows where the enemy has money, which side they're committing their resources to. Isn't as obvious in Fog without extreme, scouting, and due to the nature of her weak vehicles in themselves, her recons struggle to, be aggressive. Recons are a lot more common as well, which kind of punish infantry in the early game. And in general, she can't really take advantage of her early strength as effectively as she would in maybe a standard game. I'm playing Jake today. Jake's day today is a 10% firepower bonus on planes. Even applies to air units. Can be pretty helpful for some scenarios, especially when trying to 2-hit strike a tank on a city in combination with a comm tower. You can get a consistent 2-hit KO, I believe. But overall, you generally don't want to be attacking from planes, so it does have its downsides, depending on the terrain. His regular power is Beatdown. I want to say Beatdown, which gives his land indirects an additional +1 range and increases his planes bonus to 20% for the turn. And then his super, which is Block Rock, gives his land indirects +1 range. increases his plane's bonus to 40% for the turn, and gives his vehicles, his land vehicles, +2 movement. Movement powers in general, very, very effective. So as a result, Jake is normally more of a super spamming CO. Don't really want to use the CO power as often, unless you get scenarios set up where maybe you get a bunch of value out of +1 range artilleries. But for the most part, you want to be looking at saving up for block rock and then using the massive move bonus to be able to like take a bunch of effective first strikes and dominate from planes. You start getting like, you know, I think you get like a 9-2 split in a tank trade from planes at default block rocks, like on a tank on a planes as well. So if they're both on planes, you get like an insane split. Even attacking into cities, I think you get like a 4 or an 8-4 or something like this. Like you get pretty exceptional numbers. Obviously, especially in combination with comm towers, you know, it can be very effective in that regard. So yeah, this map is kind of one of those fog maps where, you know, it is a Widge map, Widge, WYJ, I'm not sure. But it is one of those maps where the angle of attack isn't necessarily predetermined. You know, you have 2 factories, 1 airport. Airport is offshore, so you do have to commit the black boat that you start with. But you have like these 2 like lines, I suppose, and the center area. Not much to really gobble in the center. It's kind of just 4 properties that aren't super contestable. You can kind of get maybe these middle ones or you know, these ones, but the center itself isn't really that important with regards to how much value you can get from it. It's generally kind of one of those maps where being in the center allows you to, you know, quickly support either flank where the fight will actually break out. A lot of the map is revolving around kind of these side areas, like I said, the rivered off areas. You have these comm towers here. You have like, you know, 6 properties in this area. So generally these 6 and these 6 will be the ones that you can test for the most part. These center 2 and the labs, they don't really matter that much, but it can be something you go for. Everything else is a bit too close to reinforcement lines. So you mostly find that both players are playing for these sides. Each player does start with a pre-deployed recon, giving them a little bit of intel with regards to how hard a player is committing. Both of these comm towers generally go to the opposite recon side. So this recon will cover when my infantry, playing Cobalt Ice, by the way, once again mixing it up. My infantry will appear on this comm tower. My opponent will get information to show that I've already kind of expanded into this area, and vice versa. So just giving a little bit of intel and helping you make a bit more of a you know, influenced decision, I suppose. Because like I said, this map is not direct with regards to how it will play out, right? Like I think the contested properties are fairly obvious, but you could easily commit to top side and you could easily commit to the bottom side for both players. Due to the terrain kind of in these areas, neither way is super convenient to get to. So you do kind of have to like pick a side a little bit ahead of time, or try and play in the center and use that to give you these side reinforcements. But overcommitting to the center can just lead to you not really getting anything in the sides within, you know, due time, which can put you really behind in the economy game. So either way, let's just get into today's game, shall we? Like I say, nobody good, great player. So, double infantry build, very standard. You'll see we actually mirror here. We both go for this black boat. This is some funky stuff you can do with black boat movement on this map. You'll see I believe we actually end up mirroring. Pretty standard opening phase. Hope we're doing well today. How am I? I'm good, thank you. Appreciate you asking. It's very nice of you. Been doing good, Haven't really had too many great games coming out lately. Do need to get some bangers. Feel like a lot of my games are ending very early or not being too interesting, so it's been hard for me to find some replays to look at lately. Maybe I'll start covering other games. I don't know, other people. I don't know. Something I haven't really thought about. A pretty standard capture phase so far. Nobody good. Already going out for the airport. And they actually end up building an APC as their first vehicle. Not that uncommon, I suppose, as Sammy especially. Like I say, you do want to get those mechs out. You want to start pushing for, you know, aggressive transports. This is pretty stock standard Sammy stuff. I'm actually going to build a day 4 recon. Due to the way the properties are captured on this map, it's a little bit hard to delay for a first tank. I don't think it's unreasonable necessarily to wait, but I would say that going for an early recon is perhaps a little bit more effective of a line, and especially when I looked over some high-level games, I found that a lot of players were definitely taking early recons, and especially against Sammy as well. It makes a lot of sense to me to be building into recons when, you know, perhaps, you know, she's gonna be focusing a lot on Footsoldiers. Sorry, I really lost my train of thought today. So, you see a lot of APC boosting, transport usage coming out from my opponent. Pretty good stuff. They are setting up to capture these cities on this spot side, like I said. But generally, this tower is much closer to me, and this tower is closer to them. So you'll see the towers normally go this way, but you do have this recon scouting out. I'm moving my recon out, getting it on the city, just trying to get some other information. I don't expect my opponent to be on these properties yet, but it's always a possibility that they just APC boost, you know, super aggressive neutral locations. Then I can actually get some aggressive recon value. First tank did come out from my opponent this turn. But obviously, Sammy Tank's a little bit weaker. Could definitely still deal with a recon, but I can be a little bit more confident, I think, taking some aggressive poke trades. I go for a tank recon on this turn. So I have a recon kind of committing to either side. My opponent's tank is moving out to the bottom. This is actually an interesting movement line. I don't think I use this at all in my games, which could be pretty good. Going across the shoals there. You see they actually black boated over to this spot here, by the way. I think I'll end up doing the same thing. But I waste a couple of turns like, with it just sitting here waiting for this capturing infantry. I definitely could have made more use of it maybe, but I don't think I did in this game. This property especially is really finicky to get to. It's just really awkward, out of the way. Like, these shoals don't connect, so you have to, like, bring it out here and then bring it back. It's just really gruesome to get to, really. Economy fairly similar. I'm actually getting my comm tower ready. I moved this recon onto this city now, so I have it revealed some of my opponent's infantry. I kind of know the speed of their bot side. I think I can maybe deduce the APC build, but I don't think I do at the time. I actually go for a battlecopter on this turn. One effective usage of the battlecopter on this map is you can actually take out your opponent's recon very aggressively. I know this is something a lot of high-level players do on this map, and I think it's definitely a good shout, just limiting the amount of information your opponent has. Second tank coming out from my opponent. First tank's just sitting on the HQ, defending some of these infantry, especially the central capture. And this infantry will reveal my recon. Tank is in range to back it up if I do go for the attack. An anti-air mech comes out from my opponent. First mech of the game. Like I said, Sammy, obviously, excellent mech abuser. Predicting an early copter, obviously they don't have information, so... Very early aggressive anti-air. Can always be a bit weird. I'm so conflicted on Fog, and watching better players doesn't really clear it up anymore. Like, in some cases you'll find that players really wait until they have more information on air units to build an anti-air, because if you're playing against someone that's just spamming tanks and you build an anti-air, you can end up totally wasting... basically just wasting a vehicle build, because the anti-air doesn't provide anything until it's covering air units, right? So you can just end up in this situation where suddenly you just aren't getting any value and your opponent is +1 tanks and you just kind of wasted a build. So I think it's hard to get a judge of how predictive you want to be. I guess it just depends on, you know, you have to limit your aggression if you do commit to an anti-air build, but, you know. I end up swerving back, go for this recon tank. I actually lose a hit point here to the Sammy infantry. Kind of crazy. I end up not hitting this one. I couldn't see the tank, but I could be fairly certain there is a tank in this area. I'm actually committing my first tank to the top side, build a second one. Moving my copter straight down, getting ready to hit this recon. I do move the black boat here, which reveals this shoal, and will show me that there's the recon must be further down, because I should be in range to hit it on the next turn, assuming I can reveal it. I think it's only that one vision, right? Yeah. But now I know that it's not on this tile, so I should know that it's probably where it starts, which is this tile. My opponent probably hasn't moved it. Then I'm going for an aggressive capture on my forward property. Well, I guess it's more of a neutral one, but it's still kind of on my side. Tanks moving down to pressure the recon. Mechs being deployed forwards. I have a infantry in this woods here, so I do see this. I also see this comm tower capture beginning because of the recon, the pre-deployed recon that we receive. Anti-air's moving forwards, getting to cover. 2 artillery coming out from my opponent, so you can... This kind of implies that they want to try and push through a side, right? Like, Sammy indirects are actually completely fine. They don't get any damage penalty. Very standard. This kind of implies that nobody good wants to kind of wall up these infantry with this tank and this mech, maybe the anti-air, get artillery, maybe 1 or 2, probably just 1 in this area, 1 up here somewhere, but probably 1 in this area, and then just start pushing down this line, maybe. Trying to pressure these properties, perhaps. But quite an early artillery build, I'd say, given that the walls haven't really started forming yet. But, you know, it could end up working out. I do end up finishing off this infantry on the road. The tank was moving up to defend, but by killing this infantry, I actually deny my opponent all the vision, so this recon should be pretty safe, to be honest. Move the black bow down, reveal the recon, like I said. Get the hail net, should be able to finish it next turn, which completely cuts off my opponent's vision in this area. And it seems like it's not that big a deal, but it's actually quite substantial, because suddenly they don't know what my reinforcements here look like, and I can even just go safely down this side it kind of opens up this other avenue of reinforcing for me that my opponent doesn't have access to, because I'll see all the units here, right? I know when there'll be units in this area, I know the state of the infantry, I know if any vehicles show up, and I'm actually denying my opponent that information. So I think it is actually quite relevant, and also, you know, it does reveal that I have a battlecopter, but it is still getting an early kill, so at the very least I'm getting 4,000 of value, I suppose. I choose not to interrupt this infantry, instead going for the neutral capture. Put the recon in the woods to get information. Shouldn't have been able to get revealed. And I put a tank here as well, covering this recon, covering this infantry. When it comes to Sammy, you kind of just want to accelerate into the mid-game kind of tank mauling phase as soon as you can. And that's a big part, again, of why she's not as effective in the fog. You know, I choose not to interrupt this capture. I don't want to get in the infantry battles. I just want to hold out, preserve as much of my foot soldiers as I can, not end up losing them to kind of aggressive trading. Try not to give up too much property where I can, like keep a reasonable, you know, closeness in the income so I don't just get overwhelmed by her just having a massive vehicle advantage. And then once we get to kind of the vehicle clashing, that's where I'll generally have, you know, an advantage in terms of my CO, because, you know, especially if we're fighting on planes, I have a 10% boost, and she's minus 10%. I mean, this comm tower's involved, so I'll be 120 and she'll be 100, but either way, you know, that's where my substantial advantage will be. Go for a double tank build this turn. So you see overall, like, economy is quite similar, not too crazy. So one artillery moving north, one artillery moving south. Anti-air actually goes up here, which I think is kind of interesting, especially because I've shown a copter down here. I think it's kind of curious that the anti-air is going into this area. Maybe they just assume that I'll have more air units. So they end up transport boosting and infantry, which reveals my recon, so really well played actually. I didn't think they had a way to reveal it, but they do get it with the APC. Get a big hit on the recon, but it is surviving, which is, you know, generally all you need. Tank moves in here to get into my infantry capture. First battlecopter comes down from my opponent. Moving more foot soldiers forwards. So I finish off this recon first of all. Start capturing this port. Need to refill this black boat. It's getting low. I can't let it sink again. People will hate me. I moved really aggressively forwards with this recon to just hit this infantry, and end up picking up with the 5 HP infantry, which also opens up my tank to get a strong first strike. It also reveals a lot of the information. You know, I'd be surprised if my opponent had... They could have had 2 tanks instead of this anti-air. It's totally plausible. But I am hitting from a city, and it's Sammy tanks, so I generally have a big advantage. You know, I also have this recon kind of revealing this area if there was a tank up here, so I knew it would have to be back here. But basically, I just posture aggressively. And I mean, if they did have a tank, they would probably have to hit this recon and pull back with this one. And I guess overall that I'm kind of traded evenly, and I also got a bunch of information. Maybe it's a bit too aggressive, but either way. I end up walking in here and getting myself trapped, trying to cover the woods, pull my 2 HP recon back, bringing some tanks forwards, making sure to chain them together here. I actually have 2 tanks covering this one, as I know my opponent has a tank in the area, and they can definitely get vision of this one, so if they do take a first strike, I'll have tanks to cover. You generally always want to be trying to chain tanks and fog, especially. If you are going to posture aggressively with a tank, make sure you have another one backing it up. And I grabbed 2 more. So starting to get into like the meat of the, you know, the vehicle phase in the mid game now. And this is definitely where I want to start pushing my advantage. I'm only 1k income down actually, which I know because my opponent hasn't got this port, and they haven't managed to pressure this city. So when I get my port, I'll actually be even. I don't know where the... Yeah, I guess it's because they haven't got the port or this one. So there'll be 1 ahead when they get the port, which I think is pretty fine for a Sammy game, honestly. I think being within 1,000 or 2,000 income is generally pretty acceptable. So I actually take a first strike on my infantry, which I think is kind of interesting because, you know, at this point you would assume that I have vehicles lying around, and the mech isn't quite in range to cover this tank yet. Anti-air takes a big hit on my recon, but do pick it off with the double vehicle. Finish off this infantry in the river, so maybe it was a bit too aggressive overall. They have a great anti-air positioning here as well, covering this tank. Artillery position, I should say. So, shipping infantry to the center, mechs moving forwards, but isn't quite in range yet unless double time comes out. Another battlecopter for my opponent, and a mech, and a tank. Big build turn. Get a lot of money. I finish my capture down here. I move up with the first tank, pick up this infantry, take this infantry with the 2 hit as well. Start capturing this property aggressively, move other tanks forwards. You know, I'm just trying to kind of like bait a fight here because I know my opponent doesn't have that much information. I haven't seen any recons, and I'd be surprised if Sammy does build them because they have a little bit less impact. Even in, like, normally they don't have a lot of value anyway, and they even less for a CO like Sammy, so I would have been surprised to see recons, so I'm trying to bait in like a big vehicle fight. My tanks could be considered to be a bit too far forwards here. Maybe I gave away a bit too much information. This one is in the woods, but This one will get revealed, but, you know, I have 2 more coming, so I know I have 5 tanks in this area. I'm basically reinforcing it really effectively, so just trying to bait a fight, you know? I'm like, if you want to trade, let's trade. Putting Footsoldiers in a bit of a precarious position, trying to force this capture, but it's just because I have so many vehicles, like, ready in this area. I pull this tank back. In case my opponent has a recon or something, I do a little cute swerve. Trying to hide information. Grab my first anti-air, a lot later than my opponent, but battlecopters aren't even in the game yet, so don't feel too bad about it. My copter could also move to reinforce this area, covering this infantry as well. And I've seen an anti-air up here, and I would be surprised if my opponent had 2 anti-airs already, so... Definitely not overly concerned about that. They do start capping my port now. This copter's heading to the south. Pick off my infantry on the shore. Artillery's moving forwards. They get an interrupt on my capture. And they just kind of agreed to retreat. Maybe they just felt like I was playing really aggressively, so it kind of revealed like my plan, but you know. Either way, they peel back. Start moving infantry forwards from below. Get the black boat on the port. We did it. We saved it. A black boat lives today, at least for now. So I move my tank onto the city to take out this infantry, which does reveal the artillery, but I aggressively push in, break the tank, and then move straight in, hit the artillery, get a nice 8 damage hit. This copter is in range, this mech is in range. Maybe a bit of an overextension, but at the same time, I'm getting really, really good trades. I'm feeling pretty confident about this scenario regardless. Move this other tank down to reinforce and finish off this infantry. Probably could have done that in reverse to preserve some HP, but I think I wasn't sure if I wanted to move my tank, and I was thinking about it for a while. Move another tank up here to cover these infantry on the north. And I'm bringing in more reinforcements onto the south. I got the recon chilling around, getting healed every turn, you know, ready to grab information. And I got the anti-air moving. I built 2 more tanks. So I've got a big vehicle surplus here. You know, if we look at unit count, I've got 9 tanks to 2. So I'm definitely aggressively playing the tank game. You notice I haven't gone for any artillery yet, because I don't really feel like I'm in like the pushing stage. I really lately like to go for artillery, either when it's like a force buy, like I just can't afford anything better, or, you know, when the walls kind of start to set up. I think at this point I could definitely have considered an artillery purchase. Start plugging them around this area maybe, when my opponent maybe retreats from this area, or, you know, one of us agrees to retreat, then I can pull artillery forwards during that window. So it could have been artillery angle for sure. But my opponent ends up pulling back with the artillery here. APC moving forward, doesn't have anything in it yet. Anti-air swinging down. Copter comes up for a big hit, and they hit my tank as well. I thought this was kind of interesting because while the anti-air is covering this copter, maybe you're nervous about another thing covering this one. I probably would have just taken the copter here. Even for Sammy, like, copter versus copter is very effective. But yeah, I guess they're just playing more to the triangle. They just get a big hit on a tank with the copter instead, which is, you know, equally effective. It's not super crazy. Mech deploys out of this APC, but there wasn't a mech in there and I didn't see it. Actually, 2 APCs from my opponent. I didn't even realize. They've now finished the second one, and the first medium tank comes out. So aggressive tech up here. Probably feeling a bit nervous about this fight. Double time is available as well, but they haven't seen a good use for it yet. I do reveal this infantry capping. I just go for an aggressive cap here because this fight's kind of building up. Same thing here, you know, I just start aggressively poking at properties while this fight is kind of going through. Swerve my tank around onto the city to finish off this mech. Start capturing another property. This probably could have been with the full HP one. I don't know why I did it with the 7 HP. Definitely a bit of an error there. Maybe this one isn't here. This is weird. I don't know why I would do this. Lost my mind, I guess. I just 2-hit this infantry on the city. I see there's a tank over here that's healing. I actually just pull my copter back. I don't go for the hit. Nervous about the reinforcements. Oh, actually, I move my recon forwards to reveal everything as well, so I know there's an anti-air covering it. And I just start building a tank wall, and yeah, you see I finally plop down an artillery here with this this turn. And technically it's a force buy, because it was, you know, 961 and I had 17 or 16. So I couldn't afford a tank anyway, but I think it's a good time to start thinking about artillery when kind of this situation's unfolding with this kind of vehicle line building. Got a medium tank moving out. My opponent's walking up here, trying to match my captures on the bot side. They do interrupt. They finish off my recon. Sad, he was a good recon. I lose the infantry, go for this aggressive capture, but it is opening up, you know, my opponent's reinforcing this area, which is kind of opening up these captures to kind of get through. I could have got this property on this turn. I don't know why I kept it with the 7 HP one. That was weird. So I do reveal my tank by standing on the city, and mech comes forward as well. A lot of units being committed up here, and I can see a lot of them because of the tank's vision range. You know, a lot of these are visible, so I know there's a lot of resources up here. And I know there's a tank up here that was healing on the city. Tank mech for my opponent. Kind of saving money a bit. So I do end up finishing this capture. Could have been 2. So sad. And I pull back from the top because there's a lot of units going on here. And I start redirecting some of my tanks to the top side. Move on to this lab. It's kind of weird, but you know, I'm just a bit crazy. I just go for another aggressive capture. Kind of cycling my tanks around, you know, getting the 1 cities near the front line where I can. Sort of waiting for my artillery to show up, build another double tank. Finally, I've actually pushed an income lead here, at least for this turn. And this, you know, this next turn I'll get this one as well. Assuming that they don't get an interrupt. Medium tank moving forwards, just out of my range. They do get the interrupt on this capturing city with an infantry. Start capturing this top one. Copter moves up, takes a swing on my tank on the city. But you kind of just see, like, even with a tower, this isn't even a 2-hit KO. Like, that's kind of like how crazy the differences can be when it comes to the vehicle stage for Sammy. Even with a comm tower, so she's hitting for hundreds, she still can't get the 2-hit with a copter tank. It was an 8 HP tank, I suppose, but I feel like most other COs at +1 tower could have feasibly gotten that. Maybe I'm mistaken. Oh, copter tank, infantry coming out. Kind of getting to the standard, you know, 17k build at this point. So I do have tanks backing this up. I pick up this one. I move this tank into the woods, and then I just get the 1-shot on this copter. I do have beatdown at this point, or block rock, sorry. But I think I'm kind of committing to not using it this turn. I actually just use a tank here to hold this. There is an artillery here, but I'm hoping that by blocking this, I'll get this capture. And even if I have to sack a tank for it, you know, I can just kind of wall off enough that I'll get it. I do activate block rock kind of late. I don't know how I see this mech, but I must have done something. Or I'm just, you know, a big cheater. Oh, yeah, okay. I think I've moved a tank, like this tank here, to hit this. Actually, I don't know. I don't know how I've done it. I'm off the grid. I've also beaten this thing. Yeah, this turn is all sorts of scuffed, but I guess it will refresh afterwards. I think it must be this tank on the lab has moved and given me vision. So I end up using block rock kind of late into this turn, but I do get a fair few hits. Yeah, so I'd moved the tank here because I knew there's a mech in the woods because of the APC. I move the tank here, which reveals all these units, and I get a lot of pickoffs. I'm gonna have to give up the city at the top and another city. Double time does come out, gives this mech space to reach this tank on the city. Is gonna get picked off. That can't be right. Okay, it was the artillery, yeah. I was like, there's no way this infantry just hit me for 5 damage. Copter does get a big swing on the tank on the road. Artillery hits this tank below as well. Copter is going to pick it up, but looks like I am actually going to secure this city, which is a very aggressive capture for me. Medium tank does finally reveal itself, picking off a tank. Oh, not quite. 2 HP infantry gets in there, somehow does enough damage. So it is possibly going to delay me enough that I won't be able to get it. Anti-air hits my anti-air, doesn't quite get the kill. APC is moving back to pick up some more mechs, and a copter coming out from my opponent. So I move my copter in, take a big swing on the enemy copter, use my tank to finish up this infantry in combination with the other infantry. Pull this infantry off because this was a 2 cap at this point. Just use it to wall instead as I start a fresh cap. Artillery swing on the anti-air on the top side. Pull the copter back. I guess because I see this copter, so I feel like anything I hit will get counter hit, but maybe I could have stayed in. Using tanks to clean up some of these aggressive units. Pulling up more reinforcement tanks. I put another recon on the last turn. Just trying to get some more intel. Oh, I do end up using this path here. And I built my first medium tank as well. Especially the medium tank phase, I think, you know, that's where Sammy really starts to struggle, because hers are noticeably weaker. They are still good at killing tanks, but when we get to medium tank exchanges, I mean, she does have the indirects able to deal with them quite effectively, so it's not a complete loss, but they do end up picking up my tank with an artillery fire. Mechs being deployed on the south. Copter goes for a hit on my tank. And they're just taking value trades at this point, but I have won the city, so I'm feeling pretty good about this overall. Shouldn't be able to get an interrupt on my infantry anymore, because I do have the wall up. But yeah, I'm going to walk over with a slight economy lead. Do finish capturing this property. Just going to put me 2k up. Use the 5 HP anti-air to just get a big hit. And then I pull in the copter to take out this copter, which now at this point I'm feeling pretty confident my opponent doesn't have any actual air combat in this area, so it's a good way to warrant the artillery ineffective. Take a big hit on this infantry, even though I'm in range of the artillery, just because I'm thinking that I have enough of a unit advantage perhaps that If my opponent wants to commit to this fight, I'll win out in the long run, just using my coming reinforcements, but I think maybe it's a bit of an overextension still. Pull my units back on the south. My job here is done. I've won the city for now. Swing this tank up and get a big hit on this mech. That's actually really effective. Especially because, yeah, you know, I think if I take out... The thing about Sammy I've covered before is if you take out a lot of the mechs, it really limits her ability to fight. Even if you're kind of trading tanks for them, sometimes that's worth it, because the mechs are much harder to resupply to an area, you know? Sometimes taking an economic loss in terms of material can actually end up being very effective, because even though I'm maybe losing material money, it's way harder for her to get new mechs to the area than it is for me to get new tanks, right? Because she has to, like, pull the APCs back, buy the mechs, move the mechs to the APCs, put them forwards again. They probably still don't make it at 1 turn, so it could be, like, 2 turns of transporting, or you get them close enough, and then they have to walk for, like, 2 or 3 turns. Like, it's kind of the same principle that you can apply to artillery as well. Is a lot of times, finishing off artillery or getting big hits on artillery can weaken an opponent's position much harder, because it's much harder to get a new artillery in that position. You know what I mean? Like, artillery have less movement, they can't attack, so getting them into a solid location takes a lot more effort and a lot more time than it does to just build another tank and drive that tank up to a fight. So sometimes when you kill the artillery, you can weaken your opponent's position so dramatically, even if you end up throwing away a tank of your own. And that's kind of a principle that I end up applying to Sammy a fair amount. Go tank Antea this turn. My opponent's next turn, they get a big... Yeah, they do finish off this tank with the medium tank. I'm not necessarily saying this is a perfect example of that ideal, by the way, but, you know, in any case, it is something I think that is relevant. My opponent's moving units forward to get a big hit on this infantry, end up 2-hit KOing it. I do have this artillery in a pretty good spot, just out of vision, so if they do go for any tank hits here, I will be able to counter hit, at least on this left one. Unless they hit from the road, I suppose, but... You know, we can pray. Units moving forward, shipping new mechs up. And, you know, if you end up in a situation where all of Sammy's foot soldiers are dead and you just have tanks versus tanks, you know, as long as you're even in tanks, you'll normally win that. Like, it's not as much of a concern. Use the artillery to finish off that infantry, which opens up some first strikes. I move the recon round here, once again revealing my opponent's kind of units and positioning. And I'm pulling more tanks out to be ready for this fight. I think I played this turn kind of weird by accident. Either way, I kill the APC, and then I finish the mech. Same principle, you know, finishing the APC is actually quite substantial. At this point, I'm not sure, I feel like I know the artillery is here, but I'm just kind of, like, committed to ignoring it for some reason, but maybe it will work out. I pick up this 1 HP infantry, prohibiting any captures. And yeah, I do have infantry kind of sneaking back in this area. If you've been following them in the last few turns, you'll see they've kind of been meandering around in these woods. And I'm just waiting, because I see more of my opponent's units moving north, right? And I recognize a lot of these units from the southern fight. So I can kind of assume that my opponent is pulling all their units from down here to the north. So I'm just trying to sneak in these infantry, and maybe there's just a turn where I just jump on this city and they don't have a unit in time. Could totally happen, especially in fog. And at the same time, it's scouting if my opponent wants to do a similar thing with their own infantry. I think an interesting thing to discuss as well is that my recon is still alive, which is revealing this northern back end here as well, which also gives me more information. Although granted, it hasn't really provided me with too much. Okay, it was the artillery. I was like, there's no way this 1 HP mech did 5 damage. Medium tank does pick off a tank. Another tank comes forwards, gets a big hit, but it does reveal my artillery. Like I said, my opponent didn't have information on its exact positioning, so they end up kind of walking right into it. They are getting a lot of first strikes here. Double time does come out. Lets the infantry move forward and get a big first strike. 2 HP copter will finish it off. Mech moves forward, picks off my recon, but recon's already got kind of the intel that I needed it to. And then moving on more vehicles. Copter actually ends up sitting around here, which is interesting. Not really sure why. Maybe they are scared of a southern push. And recon mech battlecopter comes out. So I do a block rock this turn. I'm going to be popping it straight away. Another great thing about block rock that I talked about before is it lets you reinforce so much easier. You could just pull tanks from much further away, closer to a fight, than you would normally. Swerve this anti-air all the way from the right to pick up this mech. Finish off this tank. Pulling this tank forward, hitting this copter. Does reveal this artillery. I don't know where this 5 HP infantry went. Maybe it was dead. Just have to pull in my 7 HP copter, get a big hit on this artillery, but it is sitting on a city, which doesn't enable me to, open strike this, or first strike this medium tank and get a 9-4, which is a great trade for me. Even though I'm sitting in artillery range, I'm trying to weaken my opponent's position enough that they don't feel comfortable sitting here and whacking with the artillery. You know, I take a double hit on this tank, put it to 3 HP. Take a hit on this copter, put it to 4 HP. I've got an anti-air sitting right around, so it doesn't really take any hits. I'm just trying to make it so my opponent doesn't feel confident hitting this anti-air, because I recognize how many vehicles they have, and I think I can break the position. So I'm just kind of ignoring the artillery. This one is still alive, man. Maybe I just didn't know it was there. I don't know what's going on. I go copter, recon, infantry. Still a little bit ahead in the economy game. You see, I did push for this city, but there is an infantry sitting on it, so sadly I probably won't be able to get that. Maybe I just didn't remember this artillery was here. I don't know. I'm kind of losing my mind. It's got so much value. It's crazy. So yeah, copter moves forwards to pick off this infantry with a double hit. Unfortunate stuff, but you know, another day, another time. That could have been a free city. More mechs coming out. Only the one APC now. Another double time this turn. Gives the infantry this one shot. This infantry moves up, gets a big hit as well. Copter moving forward, we'll pick off my copter. And the artillery actually hits my anti-air instead of the medium tank, which feels really good for me. Copter moves around as well. Medium tank moves around. Really trying to break my anti-air, but I have a second one already coming. That's part of why I felt confident to move up aggressively and hit this this mech, because I already have a second anti-air in the waiting, and it reinforced a lot faster than it normally would because of block rock and how much closer, you know, it can get a third of a move closer to the fight than it normally would be able to, which makes the reinforcement line a lot speedier. Yeah, finally I revealed this artillery. I mean, it's actually just got so much value. I don't know what was going on. I'm losing my mind. Pick off the enemy artillery, which, you know, frees up now my medium tank. It's only really threatened by copters at this point. I pull this anti-air back just to get, you know, a bit of frontline healing. A 3 HP anti-air can still get a solid chunk on a copter, so it doesn't feel that bad. And, you know, especially because there's quite a low copter as well. It has a potential purpose, so I don't just sack it or anything. Build a second medium tank. Really just trying to aggressively tech up. I know I'm at an economic advantage here as well, by a little bit. So yeah, I choose this copter to scout this artillery and reveal its position permanently. I feel like maybe I just kept forgetting it was there. I don't know, it's kind of wild. I lose another infantry that was sitting on this city, so now I'm a little bit nervous about these southern properties for sure, but I am kind of central positioning, which allows me to, you know, pivot down to the south if I am too concerned about it. Lose a tank here to this copter. This artillery runs back, but I think it's in range of the recon now, maybe? I think I can deduce its positioning because of the vision that I have available, so I know it's either like here or in this forest or something. More mechs coming forwards, but killing the early APC was quite effective for me actually, because it really disables my opponent's supply line with regards to mechs. So like I say, when you kill the mechs, it's much harder to replace them than it is a tank. I move the recon, which reveals it. I just take a hit on it with the 1 HP copter. I move another recon to the north. Medium tanks moving forwards, got another copter coming forwards, and yeah, I pull this this anti-air to the south into the woods to kind of cover this copter if it wants to keep pushing forwards and hitting my infantry. And I just start positioning units in the north, kind of waiting in the woods. I get more infantry out. Maybe this infantry could move a bit better, but yeah, I'm trying to move up and then capture some of these contested ones that are a bit closer to my side, because my opponent's been forced to retreat quite, you know, defensively, which enables me to start pressuring some of these cities again and keep pushing my economic advantage. 4 HP copter does move up, finish off my copter. I must have missed a movement here. Recon reveals. Maybe picks up the infantry. I'm not sure if it killed it. This copter really hiding out of vision in case I have any units in the area. Even though my opponent can't see them, playing very defensively. They just started spamming medium tanks at this point. Medium tank mech coming out. Pretty fine Sammy build, to be honest. Medium tanks are a bit more effective than the regular tanks because of the matchup advantages they have. And yeah, obviously wants to keep pumping out mechs. Okay, this infantry didn't die. It just got hit. That makes more sense. Move this anti-air down and just one-shot this infantry. Honestly, I'm feeling pretty confident about this area. I don't think my opponent has many units down here. They could have a tank right here, but it's weird for Sammy to have tanks, and any tanks that they do have probably have to be committed to dealing with my tanks, you know? So I feel pretty fine. If I just sit an anti-air here, you know, if my opponent has copters or anti-airs, I win the fight because my directs are just stronger, and I pull a tank to cover it as well, which is revealed by the recon. Push this recon forwards on the top side. Getting these infantry in position to start threatening some cities. Definitely should have been doing a bit faster. I think my foot soldier purchasing has been okay. I've been getting them out a little bit, although I do only have like 5 infantry because I lost a lot of them in the center fight. But kind of getting them to the relevant areas has taken a while. Infantry does kill or recon does kill this infantry. Kind of sucks, but happens, I suppose. My opponent's just trying to limit the amount of foot soldiers I have in this area, I think, so they don't have to worry about their cities as much on the south. Copter gets trapped, revealing my artillery. Another copter comes forwards, gets a first strike. Tank reveals itself on the city. More units moving up, responding to my northern force, because a fair bit of it has been revealed. Although they've only seen a tank, a recon, and an artillery. They don't really know how much I have here, really. Move my artillery into the city, reveal the recon, one-shot it with the tank. Get a first strike on this copter. Use the artillery to hit the tank, which gives me another first strike for the planes. And I do finish off with the 2 here. It's pretty aggressive, but I have this medium tank kind of sitting in the woods covering. And I have felt like I've been in an economic advantage for a lot of the game. I mean, I don't necessarily show it in the unit count that much, but we're getting to a point where it's mostly vehicle fights, and my CO is kind of better at that. Once again, I'm letting this artillery bamboozle me. I don't know how I keep letting it get away with it. I'm losing my mind. I even know it's in this woods, like 100%. I'm going crazy. It's got so much value. It's insane. Probably actually built rockets now. Really trying to defend these far back cities. Double time comes out again. Opens up this mech first strike. Weak copters hitting my artillery. Try to do some damage. Tank finishes off my tank. Medium tank moves forward, finishes off the artillery. Shipping up more mechs. I take another big strike for this artillery in the woods. I don't know what's going on, man. It's just getting so much value. It's crazy. Like I say, I'm pretty sure I've known it's here. I don't know what I'm doing. Happens, I guess. So, my anti-air. Come forwards, picking off all these copters. Pretty good win for me. I start capturing these cities. Use the recon to get a big hit on the mech. Super valuable for me. And I use this tank to get a first strike from the planes. Bit aggressive, but it also reveals this medium tank, giving me another first strike. Not as effective one as the previous time, but I do have another medium tank covering. And I have more copters and such moving forwards. I kind of see my opponents are currently having anti-air in this direct area, so I know that this copter should be safe to strike next turn. Got these 2 vehicles covering this other location, and my opponent making any pushes forwards. Build another medium tank, almost another block rock ready. Big hit on this medium tank from my opponent. Finish off another tank. Finish off my recon with the mech. I do lose the medium tank here, but they're committing all the attacks to you know, my vehicles for the most part instead of the cities. Do get an interrupt on this one. I guess the artillery will interrupt this one, so, you know, sucks for me, but seriously, this artillery, man, I think it's shot like every turn for the last 7 turns or something. I guess I had to move 1 or 2 turns, but it's crazy how much value I've given it. Definitely just a huge mistake. Medium tanks picks off my anti-air. Block rock comes out on my turn. Get a 9 damage from the planes. Feels pretty good. Use my infantry to pick off this battlecopter. I use this infantry to finish off this mech. This was quite a complicated turn. I was trying to find a way to get my medium tank, but first strike this medium tank. Just use this copter for some scouting and to free up this space for the 3 HP tank, which lets me walk up, get a first strike of this medium tank from the woods, so I get a 9-3. So now I have a 9 HP medium tank against a 6 and a 3, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. And I actually pick it off with the copter even. Anti-air finishes off this infantry. Pulling more vehicles forward. Once again, you know, block rock really letting me reinforce effectively. I'm not really seeing anything down here, so I'm pulling up this anti-air to this section as well. Just going to leave this tank to cover this city. Medium tanks moving forwards again. Let's pull this infantry off because it's just going to die. But maybe I could snag this city or at least force my opponent to make some bad trades to protect it. Put this tank in the woods. My black boy has just been chilling on this port the whole game. Perhaps not the most effective usage, but you know. I suppose my opponent hasn't been moving that much either. So I do lose the copter. But it did reveal a little bit more information. And yeah, force is building to push into this southern area now. Top side is retreating from my opponent, so I am probably going to end up winning this city. So I do get an economic advantage from it. Move my recon down to get a bit more scouting. Reveals the anti-air or the artillery. Finally, I punish it by slamming my medium tank at it in anger. And I'm feeling pretty confident about this hit because I have the units to kill these. Which limits my opponent's information that they have. They have to kind of move forward really aggressively. I do need one more turn to capture this, actually. I forgot. And my opponent's on the retreat, but I'm feeling pretty confident at this point. I'm just moving in and slamming units. I reveal the recon, but I'm just trying to take out any units that my opponent has that will let them give vision. Because as soon as I see this rockets, and I know there's an artillery here as well, I think, maybe. I'm like, okay, the disadvantage at this point, my opponent's committed a lot of value to indirects, right? But the disadvantage is now they really lack vision information.
So I'm just trying to take out this tank, you know. I can't see this copter, obviously, but I'm trying to, you know, take out everything that can actually get the info, because rockets only see one, artillery only see one, medium tanks only see one. Like, now they have no actual vision gathering units here, you know, except this copter, obviously, which I don't know about, but just trying to take out the units I can while moving infantry forward to start threatening more of these cities again. Should be able to pick up this one on the next turn. Once I get these cities, I can just kind of retreat again and then just start using my economic advantage. My opponent does get a strike on this tank, moves up another medium tank. Copter does reveal it, they get a big rocket hit for 7, that kind of hurts. But I have another medium tank coming to reinforce. And at this point, you know, I am winning some of the cities, so none of these units actually move up, which I think is kind of interesting. I guess they're just scared about me pressuring the city. But I actually don't have any forces here, so there's a lot of forces committed to kind of fighting ghosts. Do finally get this city getting a position together. Top ones, move this 4 HP anti-air up. See, I got a 6 HP hit, you know, even with a 4 HP anti-air. That's what I mean. Like, even having them low can be valuable to sit around. Pick off the copter with my copter. Pull these units back a bit. No need to keep running into them with anything that isn't damaged or air-based. Because I took out the copter, and I'm not sure my opponent will have an anti-air. I didn't see one when I was scouting on the previous turn, so it shouldn't really be close enough in theory. And getting to this area with reinforcements is actually a bit of a struggle, you know. I feel like I should have been able to reveal it if I saw it. There could be a copter in range, but once again, no, unit information is very limited. Once again, I've killed the copter, and my opponent has units that don't really see anything, you know, prohibiting the information in fog. It can really be a win condition in some of these army battles. So, I'm getting infantry in position to third these 2 cities while I'm holding this line. Just really trying to push out my economic lead. Or build a big one. Do lose the anti-air. My copter's got great scouting here though, and they have nothing to hit it right now. Medium tanks are shuffling. Moving units forwards again. I think at this point, maybe like 4 or 5 turns ago, I forgot to mention it, but I start leaving units around my HQ and checking all these woods, because I felt like my opponent's only win condition was getting to the point where they had to get like a big victory march. I think it was before the last couple double times. I started getting very nervous about a victory march play, because at this point I'm 4k up, you know, so I'm really confident that I could just start pushing out a vehicle lead in the long run. Just start completely retreating from this area. I have my information. Don't want to let this copter die for nothing. I start capturing these neutral cities. Well, not neutral, but my opponent's cities. This one should be super accessible. Very hard for my opponent to push in. Especially because now I know their army consists of primarily indirects. It's very defensive focused. So I don't need to worry too much necessarily about them going for an aggressive push. Even though they do have the 2 medium tanks, you know, it's very hard to move a rockets, move a bunch of artillery. If that's where all your vehicles are committed, you can't really make any offensive attacks. You're very much holding an area. So I'm more expecting them to just play defensive, and I should be able to capture some of these outer cities and then use my economic lead to build stuff like bombers, you know, and that should be the way I can break kind of this indirect line, is building the, like, strong air units, or, you know, just dropping a bunch of, I don't know, neo tanks or something. Probably just bombers is the right move. I'll probably go into bombers to kind of break this composition. Once I start getting ahead, you know, it should be a lot harder for my opponent to build proper counter units like fighters. And yeah, they do end up resigning here. I'm gonna be 5 or 6k up next turn. Yeah, I'm gonna be at 20k to 14k. And like I said, at that point, I'm just gonna start trying to save, dropping bombers, you know, or just spamming a bunch of light vehicles. Like, probably have to build like a bomber or something to get through this kind of formation that my opponent's building and break some of these tanks. But it's gonna get harder and harder for my opponent to be able to keep up. My army will just grow to be too big. And like I say, because of the unit composition they have, it's difficult for them to push aggressively without taking a bunch more time, you know, getting more mechs up, building more tanks. Like, rockets and artillery, they aren't really great for pushing unless you're already winning, and then it's kind of like a win more, and you can actually push into an area with them, right? But they're not good at starting a push on their own, and it takes a lot of time for them to move up and get ready. So at this point, I think, yeah, just the cities are 2 in my favor. My opponent could have been pushing for this bottom side, but, you know, I could always move my army across, and yeah. I think at this point, I'm just going to stop being able to tech up too aggressively, and it'd be hard for my opponent to catch up unless I make some catastrophic fighting mistake. But overall, I think it was a really great game. Nobody good, excellent player. Always a pleasure to play against them. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. You can also comment, maybe leave some analysis. Always love reading analysis. Thank you guys very much for checking this out. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you do enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe. New video every 2-3 days. Assuming I get some more fun replays, like I say, really been struggling to get some interesting games lately. A lot of them are ending up super one-sided. So hopefully I get some more bangers for you guys that we can go over. But yeah, thank you guys very much. Hope you enjoyed this video. I've been Stitch, this has been CO Select, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye!